The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to Interview Strategies. I'm Denise Pranke, a Walden Senior Career Services Advisor, and I will be presenting today's session. Our objectives for this session are to go over interviewing tips to help you have a successful interview. I will also point out resources on the Career Services website to help you prepare for interviews, and we'll also take some time for questions. To start, let's go over the big picture of the interview process. Moving from left to right, you want to research the organization, reassess the qualifications for the position, and then prepare relevant stories and examples about your previous work and other experience, such as community service, that highlight your qualifications for the position. Prepare answers to some of the most common questions, and most importantly, practice. During the interview, show how you're the best candidate for the position, and finally be sure to follow up. You can see from this diagram that preparation is key. By following these steps, you can maximize your chance of receiving an offer. So next, we'll go over these steps in more detail. The more prepared you are for the interview, the more confident and relaxed you'll be. To begin your presentation, or to begin your preparation, research the organization's history, mission, products, services, brand, and strengths, and their competition. Know the trends in your field and the opportunities for you to contribute. Also, research the salary range for the position in your geographical area. You can use sites such as salary.com, payscale.com, or glassdoor.com to research salaries. Next, reassess your qualifications for the position. Know your strengths. Compare your skills, achievements, knowledge, experience, education, and values against the job description and the mission of the organization. As a reminder, for each job you apply for, remember to keep a copy of the job description, notes from your research, and the application materials that you sent when you applied. Sometimes you may not hear back for a month or two. It'll be easier to prepare for the interview if you stay organized and know what you've sent when you applied. After reviewing how you're a good fit for the position, prepare at least 5 relevant examples from your previous experience that illustrate your top qualifications. If you are transitioning to a new field, focus on your transferable skills and your academic work. Focus on the skills you've gained through your education as well. And then next, craft your stories using the CART formula: challenge, action, results, and tie-in. Think of a professional challenge or problem you faced, and then the action you took to address the challenge. For example, did you take a leadership role in finding a solution? What was the result? Who or what was impacted? And quantify when possible. For example, number of people served, processes improved, goals met, risk reduced, money saved. And then finally, share what you can do for the organization in the future. For example, a story that illustrates initiative to solve problems could be: the number of accidents in my department was increasing, so I analyzed the accident data to find the root causes. I took the information I learned from my analysis and created a new safety training program, which reduced the number of accidents by 60% in a 12-month period. Another example is: I increased my former employer's social media presence, which resulted in an increase in sales of 15% over a 3-month period. So next, after you create your stories, practice telling them. Practice will build your confidence. The interview prep feature in the Optimal Resume system on the Career Services website is a great tool to help you practice. We'll take a quick look at this feature before we conclude our session. Also, screening interviews and the main interview may be held over Skype, so be prepared and practice using Skype. When responding to common questions, such as "Tell me about yourself," keep your answer to less than 3 minutes. Focus on your relevant strengths and experience related to the position. Let your enthusiasm for the position show. Okay, we have a question or a comment. I don't know how to tell them about myself. So you might want to share your values, your interests and motivations, and your qualifications for the job and why you're excited about the particular position. So again, tie it into the position. You can include a statement about your academic program. If you're making a career transition, touch on why you're making that transition. Avoid going into any personal details when answering this question. If you're asked about salary, defer the discussion on salary until after you've had a chance to describe your qualifications. If pressed, give a salary range based on your research. Again, as mentioned, Glassdoor.com and Payscale.com and Glassdoor.com are common sites used for salary research. When asked behavioral type of questions, such as "Tell me about the process you use to solve a problem," use the CART formula, challenge, action, result, and tie-in to describe how you successfully solved a problem. Have a couple of stories prepared ahead of time that illustrate how you solve problems. Also prepare for difficult questions, such as "Tell me about a time when you had a conflict with a colleague and how you managed that situation." Always answer in a positive way and include how you successfully resolved the issue. Also briefly share what you learned from the experience. With a question such as, "What is an area you can improve?" describe an area that you feel you could improve that's not essential to the job, and include what you're doing to improve or compensate. So we have a question. I cannot figure what weaknesses would have little or no impact on the job function. That's going to depend on the specific job you're applying for. So it might have, a minor impact on the job function, but you want to share how you work around. For example, it might be something like, "When I have multiple projects going on, balancing the time on each project is a challenge. I tend to overly focus on one project. Because I know this about myself, I set up a project plan where I break down each project into steps and set deadlines for each step. I also schedule time on my calendar for each project." When you bring up an area to improve, you always want to add how you work around or are managing the area for improvement. Avoid describing something that would be a major issue with the job and eliminate you as a candidate. And if you did have something like that, you might want to reconsider, applying for that type of job. But show something that shows you're self-aware and have a strategy to address it. Also, further in the presentation, I'll show you how to make an appointment with a career services advisor if you're struggling with this question and you could discuss it individually with a career advisor. So next, as part of the interview, you may be asked to give a short presentation on an assigned topic or a topic of your choice. For example, if you're applying for a teaching position in K through 12 or higher education, be prepared to give a short teaching presentation on a relevant topic. You may know about the presentation ahead of time, or you may be asked on the spot. I recently heard that an applicant was asked during an interview to choose any topic related to the knowledge needed for the position and explain it on the spot to the interview panel. You could also be asked to prepare a presentation ahead of time for presentation during the interview. Employers want evidence of an applicant's communication skills and ability to think under pressure. Another situation that is becoming common during interviews is being given a hypothetical problem or scenario and asked to provide recommendations. For example, an applicant for a business position may be given a scenario such as costs related to product X are going up and revenue is going down. What steps do you recommend we take? Employers use these questions to get an idea of your problem-solving ability and how you think on your feet. In these situations, you want to carefully listen to the description of the scenario and realize that it is okay to ask questions to clarify the situation. Then organize your approach and describe your thought process as you think through the problem. The interview panel is more interested in how you approach the problem than in an exact right answer. Manage your time, be enthusiastic, and close with a brief summary. You might be asked about Walden University or about your online education. Be prepared to communicate the benefits of your Walden education, including the social change mission, accreditation, quality of faculty, curriculum, extensive writing, and global perspective. You can find information about accreditation by going to the main Walden U website at www.waldenu.edu and click on About in the navigation bar. You want to know if your program has any specific accreditation, as well as the overall Walden accreditation. Sometimes members of an interview panel are not familiar with Walden University, so they may ask you some questions about Walden. Be prepared to talk about your academic program, and especially if you're making a career transition, be prepared to briefly talk about your research, papers you've written, and topics that you've studied. Next, be sure to plan logistics ahead of time, such as attire, directions, transportation, and parking. Dress one step up from the professional attire of employees in the field. Be sure you know how to get to the location and the time it will take you to arrive, about 10 to 15 minutes early. If it's a Skype interview, check your camera and simplify what is visible in the background. So now it's time for the interview. Prior to the interview, breathe deeply and visualize yourself in your future role. We've heard back from students and alumni who shared that visualizing themselves in the role helped them build confidence, which led to successful interviews and job offers. Your goal is to educate the potential employer on what you have to offer and how you will add value. Keep in mind that you've been invited for the interview, so they're interested in you. They want you to be successful. You're there to share information about your experience and education and how you're a good fit for the position. Bring copies of your application documents and references. Pay attention to your body language and remain positive and enthusiastic throughout the interview. Avoid any negative type of answers. Also, be prepared to ask meaningful questions during the interview. This is your opportunity to engage your interviewers in a conversation. Show genuine interest in learning more about the organization. The interview is also a chance for you to determine if the organization is a good fit for you. Use your judgment to determine what questions are appropriate for a specific interview. I worked with a student in a job search who had a number of interviews but no offers. She decided she would engage her interviews in a conversation by asking more questions. Shortly after making this change, she received 3 offers and had to decide which one to accept. An example of a question may be, if I am chosen for this position, what would be my priorities for the next 3 to 6 months? Do research about the organization to help you determine appropriate questions. Don't ask questions that you can simply find the answer to on their website. After the interview, send a thank you to all interviewers within 24 hours expressing your interest and briefly restate your major qualifications. Allow yourself time to reflect on the interview experience and reward yourself for your efforts. Next, let's take a quick look at the interviewing resources on the Career Services website. There are 3 main areas we have information to help you with the interview process. We have the Optimal Resume system, archived webinars, and resources on the interviewing tab on the upper right-hand side of the homepage that include information on phone, virtual, and panel interviews, along with tips for all stages of the interview process. Next, we'll take a closer look at the interview prep feature in Optimal Resume. The interview prep feature allows you to practice interviewing by holding mock interviews and recording yourself. This is a great tool for preparing for interviews. You can record and then watch yourself answering questions so you can perfect your answers. If you don't have an Optimal Resume account, you will need to set up a free account using your Walden email address. Click on the Optimal Resume link on the Career Services homepage, and then click on the small button that says Set up an account. There are some short video tutorials within the Optimal Resume system that will illustrate how to use the different features. You'll need to scroll down to see the link to view the tutorials. We have received excellent feedback from students who have used the interview prep feature to prepare for interviews. So please take advantage of that tool. So again, and then after you set up your account, you can enter the interview prep feature and select the type of interview questions you would like to practice answering. Here it shows that the user selected behavioral questions. And then here's a view of a candidate, the mock interviewer and a mock coach who provides advice. You can see the current question for this example is, can you give an example of your problem-solving ability? I spoke with a student who had 6 interviews with no offers, and he started practicing using the interview prep feature, and he received an offer on his very next interview after practicing. So again, I encourage you to use this feature. It's an excellent feature for practicing. If you're a Walden student or alumnus who needs additional assistance, we invite you to schedule a 45-minute individual career advising appointment. The most popular advising topics are developing a strong resume or curriculum vitae, job search strategies, building your professional network, and preparing for an interview. Directions on how to schedule an appointment are on the Career Services website. Appointments are scheduled in Eastern Time, so remember to adjust your appointment time to your time zone on your personal schedule if you're not in the U.S. The Career Services advisor will call you at the time of your appointment. We recommend that you have internet access for your advising appointment if possible, because the advisor will often guide you to additional web-based resources. So next, let's check and see if we have any questions here. So we have a question. I started asking the interviewer if they have any reservations with moving forward with me as a potential candidate. I have received good feedback on why they will not move forward, but most times the interview said no. However, no one has moved forward with me yet. Do you think this question is hurting my chances? It will depend on the circumstances. Career advisors have differing opinions on the use of this question. Some think that it's a great question and others are hesitant. There's no direct right or wrong answer, but if you feel there may be a reason they would be hesitant, it may be wise to directly approach and address that issue briefly in the interview. I suggest making a one-on-one appointment with a career advisor to go more in depth about your individual circumstances. Another question is about how to say the reason for leaving a previous job is being terminated. This is another question you may want to make a one-on-one appointment with a career advisor to discuss. Keep in mind many people are terminated for a variety of reasons and find another job. You can say it wasn't a good fit and briefly add what you learned from that position and experience. The interview panel would be looking for you to be reflective on the termination and what you gained from the experience and how the position you're applying for would be a better fit. Another question, in the interview, how do I address gaps in short-term employment on my resume due to a difficult family situation? This is also a question that I would suggest making a one-on-one appointment with a career advisor to discuss. But you don't want to disclose personal information in the interview. If asked about the gaps or short-term positions, you could state that you had some short-term positions due to a family issue that has been resolved. Sometimes if you've had a lot of jobs that were very short-term, you don't have to include every single job on your resume. Again, make a career services appointment to go over your resume and look at ways to minimize the job starts and stops. You always have to be absolutely accurate on the resume, but you don't have to include everything unless you're applying for a USA federal job. Then they want to know, every position you've ever held. Keep in mind a number of people step in and out of the workforce. You want to be prepared to quickly address this question with confidence if it comes up, but you don't need to bring it up unless asked. We have a comment from another attendee regarding this question. She shares that she addressed a gap in her employment during an interview by stating that she was taking care of her family. Again, you don't want to dwell on it, just have a really short answer and then move on. Another question. My job goal is to be a professional professor. My weakness is writing and communication, so what do I do to improve my skills and get a chance to practice? The Writing and Academic Skills Center have a number of resources to help you improve your writing skills. Also consider taking some of the non-credit writing courses called CAEX writing courses offered through the Walden Academic Skills Center. The courses are listed on their website. There's a minimal cost not covered by financial aid. If they're affordable, this is an excellent way to improve your writing skills. A way to get your foot in the door is to look for an adjunct teaching position to start gaining teaching experience. Also have a really strong curriculum vitae. You can also, join a professional association and look at giving presentations at a professional association as well. And then Toastmasters International also offers opportunities to perfect your public speaking skills. We have another question. How do I answer the question, how do you define success in 2 to 3 years? Think about what you would want to accomplish in 2 to 3 years and state the kinds of problems you'd like to work on and resolve in this time frame, or how you would like to be contributing to the organization. Consider what is important to them. Make it realistic and make it related to that position and that organization. Avoid saying something like, I would like to use this position as a stepping stone to another position. Let's see, another question. Do you suggest the use of note cards during a phone interview, or should you go about it without assistance as you would in a standard face-to-face interview? I suggest that you have a copy of your resume in front of you. If during a phone interview you have some short notes, that's fine, but have examples of your qualifications prepared ahead of time to discuss. If they call you in at inconvenient time, ask if you could please schedule a time or reschedule a time for the phone interview. Also, a few notes would be fine, but you don't want to sound like you're reading off of note cards. So definitely be prepared to take that initial phone screening interview very seriously. You have to really shine in that initial phone interview to move on to the next stage. So another question, I noticed that interviewers started asking me, what would your favorite boss say are your best qualities? Is this question different than telling them what your strengths are? Why are they framing this question like this? Yeah, this would not be an unusual question. To help you prepare, you could go back and look at your performance reviews for ideas on what to share. And it could be, it is a question very similar to asking you about what your strengths would be. So I can see, that would be similar, but they're asking you to remember what someone else is saying are your strengths. Okay, it looks like that's our last question. So as we wrap up, I want to remind you to get connected with Career Services. Join Walden Career Services on LinkedIn. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and read student success stories on our blog. Do not forget, you can tap into additional resources on the Career Services website. You can also ask questions by emailing Career Services as well. And again, if you want to go more in depth to your unique situation or review your resume or your CV, please make an appointment. Again, thank you so much for attending today's session and participating with your questions. As I really appreciate the questions and the comments that you shared. Be sure to take advantage of all that Career Services has to offer. We serve Walden students at any point in their program, bachelor's, master's, doctoral level students, and certificate students and alumni. We're here to support you in reaching your career goals. So again, thank you for joining this session today.